In this Lightroom tutorial, we'll look at how we can use the radial filter to modify a specific area of an image. We'll look at how we can improve the eyes in a photograph and how we can use some advanced brushing techniques in order to effectively improve our photographs. We'll be working with multiple photographs so we can see how these techniques can work in different situations. And we'll also look at how we can improve the eyes as well as other areas in the photograph as well. With that in mind, let's begin. Hello friends, my name is Chris Orwig and welcome to my weekly series where each week I come to you with some tips and techniques which will help you to capture and create better photographs. And in this week's episode, we are in Lightroom, and here we're going to talk about how we can quickly and effectively improve and enhance the look of eyes in our portraits. Now we'll start off with a demo file, this one here. This will help us to get to know how the tool works. We'll then apply what we've learned to this photograph. Here we'll apply the adjustments to the eyes in another area, and this photograph needs even more work, so we're going to progress through this and get a little more advanced as we go. All right, well, let's start off with our demo file here. And the tool which we will be using is called the Radial filter. You can tap the R key or just click on it over here on the far right. Now, with this tool, what I first want to do is just illustrate how it works. So I'm just going to click and drag it out over the globe here. Then next, I'm going to make a drastic adjustment. In this case, let's say a brightening effect. Now, that brightening effect is only affecting the area inside of the shape, which I can change by positioning the cursor over the edges there. And we can reposition it around the photograph as well. Now, if I zoom in on this a little bit further, and let me move over to this, notice how there's a soft transitional edge. That's controlled by our feather. Without any feather, that's really harsh. As I increase this, you can see how it softens it, and it can soften it so much so that now it's almost just like a soft flashlight illuminating the globe. So that's something that we're going to use to help us dial in the right effect. Another thing that we can do here is sometimes you'll make this adjustment and the adjustment will be everywhere except where you want it. And that's because we need to click on invert to make sure that it's only affecting the area inside of this graphic or overlay graphic that we've created. Now, one more thing here that we can do is that let's say that we want this to affect the globe, but we don't really want it to affect the top up here. Well, notice how we have an eraser attached to our radial gradient. And with this eraser, what I'm going to do is go ahead and paint over this. And can you see how I'm erasing this effect from up here? And the reason why this is helpful, and it will be helpful with the eyes, is that eyes aren't a perfect, circular shape always or oval shape. And so we can sort of erase that part from part of the image. Okay, well, now that we've seen this, let's delete that for a second. And let's say that what we want to do is we want to improve the globe, the look of this. How do we do that? Well, we'll increase our exposure, contrast, maybe a little bit of shadows, definitely clarity. We'll go for some saturation and some sharpness. Then we will click and drag out the shape over the area. We will customize the shape, get it close to those edges, make sure you're just covering what you want to cover. And then we want to change our feather value so it's not quite so harsh. And voila, before and after. And as you can imagine, this can really help out when it comes to working on your portrait. So let's apply this to our portrait. Go ahead and close that for a moment and zoom out. And we'll move to our first portrait here. This one was captured in Oregon on a foggy day. And we're going to zoom in on the eyes. We'll zoom way in on those eyes. Beautiful blue eyes there. And you can see the sunshine. That's a little highlight in the eye. And if we want to draw out more light and color in the eyes, we can use the radial filter. Do you remember the shortcut? It's the R key. So we tap the R key. And we're going to guess at our values here. But typically I find it's exposure, it's contrast, definitely clarity. Often it's a little bit of saturation, also a little bit of sharpness. Now, sometimes it might be nice to apply some noise reduction, so you can experiment with that as well. Next step is click and drag that out over the eye. As you do that, you're going to want to look to see if it's making an improvement. Make sure it's affecting the right area. Experiment with your feather slider so you can see how that looks. Tap the backslash key and that can see your overall before and after. And if you notice, I'm just going to exaggerate here for a moment, that it's affecting the eyelid, grab that eraser, right? Just like we did before with the globe, and then we can erase that portion of it. And in this way, it's only affecting the eyes there. Now, once we have one, you can right-click or control-click that and choose Duplicate. And that can bring or give you another option, another version of that. Bring that over here. And in this case, I'm going to sharpen this one up maybe a little bit more. And for the noise reduction, if you go to the left, it's more noise. If you go to the right, it's less. This one, I need to reduce the noise a little bit more. Grab the eraser, just like we did before, and erase this away from the eyelid there, or maybe around another part of the edge of the eye over here. And that can just help you to accomplish more natural looks. Now, you don't always need to do that eraser technique, but sometimes it's helpful to be able to do that. Now, in this case, we have definitely affected the eyes, but what I'm realizing is I got carried away, right? It's exaggerated. So if it's exaggerated, just go back and then dial back the settings. So here I'm just going to decrease the intensity of the exposure. That looks like it was just sort of too bright. Maybe the clarity was a little bit too far as well. Because one of the things that I find that can happen when you're doing techniques like this is it can start to look a little bit fake, and that's not what we want. We just want to add a little bit of light or snap to that part of the image. And in this case, I think that's looking pretty good. Are you ready for the next photograph? Let's keep going, and we're gonna add to that with this one. So we're gonna zoom in here. We already know what to do. Tap the R key, radial filter. We're just gonna experiment with some settings. Let's keep them kind of subtle. Exposure, contrast, a little bit of clarity, maybe a little color. Click and drag that out over the area of the eye, and then add a nice amount of feather. So in this case, we just have this look, which you can see I'm bringing into the eye there. Now, do you remember how to duplicate that? Right click or control click, choose duplicate, then bring that over to the other eye over here. That will give us the identical look in both eyes. Zoom out, make sure they're looking good. And while the eyes are looking good, I'm noticing that the shirt down here is too bright. It's distracting from the face. So with this radial adjustment, what I want to do is I want to create a new adjustment. So I'm just going to kind of step back for a moment, say, what do I need to do? I need to work on this area. So I grab my radial adjustment tool, closed it, reopened it. That resets things. I need to decrease highlights, decrease exposure, contrast, and just click and drag a large area over this part of the image. Next, increase my feather value. Then dial in exactly how far I want to go. It looks like I went too far. But now can you see how that was too bright? Now that just knocking down the light right there really helps because we want to be drawn into the face, and then maybe changing the color, warming that up a little bit too, I think looks really nice as well. So in this case, we were able to modify the eyes, which was important, but then improve the overall image with the same tool and the same technique. Okay, I have one more image to show this to you with, and that's with this photograph right here. And we'll zoom in, and we're going to work on the eyes here. So go ahead and make sure we can have a nice look there in the eyes. And I'm just going to add one adjustment this time, a little brightening effect with my exposure, and then dial in the others while I'm looking at it on screen. It's another way you can do that. Create one more adjustment over here, drag that out over here, and make this one maybe a little bit darker because that one's a little bit more in the shade there. Okay, so we have those two on the eyes. Close this, reopen it. What else do we want to do here? Well, one of the things that I want to do is I want to brighten and warm up the overall face and this part of the image. So I'm going to bring in an adjustment, which is allowing me to really brighten up the look of the image right here, because I feel like that's important, right? Can you see how I'm just illuminating that part of the frame right there? And we have a nice bright look in that part of the picture. We can tap the R key to open and close. And we're going to make another one down in the lower portion of the image. And this one, I'm just going to warm it up. I kind of like how dark it is. I might even make it a little bit darker. But you can start to see, I even have adjustments that are kind of overlapping here, right? And as we have those, we can customize exactly where we want them to appear. But what I'm looking to do with these adjustments is draw the viewer into the face. And I was able to do that by making the adjustments to the eyes. Then, of course, we brightened up the face with this one, which is so critical, right? We really brought in that brightness there, kept the background for the most part as is. And then we darkened this one a little bit, but also changed the color to that so that it blended in nicely and we have a nice overall color look to the photograph. All right, well, that is a wrap. We have covered how we can do this with a few different images, starting off with our demo file, applying that to the eyes in this photograph, the eyes and the shirt in this photograph, and then here we did the eyes, the face, and then the lower portion of the image as well. All right, well, I hope that through that tutorial, you picked up some valuable techniques, and more importantly, that you're inspired on how you can start to use the radial filter inside of Lightroom. It works the same way in Lightroom Classic if you're using that one, and how you can use that to really make your images come to life. I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I can't wait to see you next week in another installment of this weekly series. Have a great rest of your day, and bye for now.